Tonight, in this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on EQUINOXE television, we take a look at the devastating consequences of the current crisis in the northwest and the southwest regions of Cameroon on the economy and also in markets here in the country's economic capital, Douala. The Cameroonian Employers Union, that is known in its French acronym as GCAM, has indicated that scores of companies have so far been adversely affected and thousands of jobs lost as a result of the Anglophone crisis. We tell you more in this edition of the news. Also ahead, the Cameroon Episcopal Conference has announced the creation of a Peace and Justice Commission to monitor upcoming presidential election in the country. Meantime, Professor Maurice Kamto of the CRM political party has so far presented the coalition of the various opposition parties and party leaders rallying behind his candidacy, but none of them is taking part in the upcoming presidential election in Cameroon. Those are our top stories. We shall be right back with the details. Stay with us. Good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you back from the weekend. You're watching the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on EQUINOXE television. Let's begin right away in politics. The upcoming presidential election in Cameroon. We have less than 1 week to the start of campaigns as far as the 7th of October polls in Cameroon is concerned. Professor Maurice Kamto, presidential candidate of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, that has pledged to put a lasting end to the Anglophone crisis once he becomes president of the Republic of Cameroon. Professor Maurice Kamto was speaking in a press conference this afternoon in Yaoundé, said that his first trip would be in the northwest and the southwest regions of the country, where he is going to be bringing messages of comfort, rebuild destroyed houses and ensure the safe return of those in bushes and those that are currently seeking refuge in Nigeria. He was speaking as he unveiled the list of parties and personalities who decided to rally behind the CRM. They are the MPCN of Paul Erikinge, the DNR of Abel Zongang, leader of the Democratic Liberal Party, Pahami Zashi of FSN, West Regional Faction of the Union de Population du Cameroun, Association of Dockers in the economic capital, Douala, André Blaise Esama, who is a vice president of the PADEC, or rather, who is an actor of the civil society and also the vice president of PADEC, who resigned weeks ago from the said political party. Professor Maurice Kamto indicated that his party is open to receive any other person that is willing to support his candidacy ahead of the 7th of October presidential election in Cameroon. And what is the church doing as far as the upcoming presidential election in Cameroon is concerned? The Catholic Church has maintained that it has no preferred candidate vying for post of president, but encouraged Cameroonians to vote for a leader that is going to be solving the social, economic and political crisis rocking the country at this point in time. His Lordship Samuel Kleda, who is the president of the National Episcopal Conference, read out these criteria while presenting a pastoral letter to the press that was in the city of Douala today. The president of the Episcopal Conference in Cameroon said that the Anglophone crisis is escalating as a result of injustice and bad governance. Details in this report.
C'est la campagne. On choisit les moyens pour faire campagne.
The Archbishop of the Metropolitan Archdiocese in Douala, His Lordship Samuel Kleda, has said that results of the U.S. election monitoring structure, which gave CPDM candidate Paul Biya an 81% victory in the upcoming presidential election, is a campaign strategy.
Chacun veut mettre toutes les chances de son côté. Alors, si un candidat
Archbishop Samuel Kleda outrightly declared that the election results cannot be known beforehand and challenged other opposition candidates to carry out an online poll if they desire to do so.
Que les autres aussi fassent autant. Le candidat sera élu. Le jour où on connaîtra les résultats. Mais maintenant, c'est la campagne que nous faisons.
His Lordship Samuel Kleda said that it is against the law of the church to belong to a political party, but cited series of criteria of what he called an ideal candidate.
Nous donnons les critères aux électeurs. C'est à eux, à partir de là, de choisir leur candidat.
His Lordship Samuel Kleda said that the choice of Christians and Cameroonians must be able to provide solutions to the current socio-political economic crisis plaguing Cameroon.
Des candidats capables de faire face à la crise socio.
He added that the candidate should show proof of ability to promote unity, fight against corruption, social injustice, unemployment, Boko Haram and the crisis in the northwest and the southwest regions of the country.
Nous, en tant qu'évêques, nous n'avons pas le droit d'être membre d'un parti politique.
While stating that the Catholic Church has no preferred candidate, Archbishop Samuel Kleda maintained that the deepening Anglophone crisis is being amplified by injustice and bad governance.
L'ennemi que nous avons là dans cette affaire, c'est un problème d'injustice, c'est un problème de gouvernance.
He said that dialogue is the only solution.
Pour ma part, je n'arrive pas à comprendre que nous ne puissions pas, ou le gouvernement ne puisse pas entreprendre un dialogue avec tout le monde pour se mettre d'accord.
While calling on journalists to play their role as advocates of peace, Archbishop Samuel Kleda announced the putting in place of a Peace and Justice Commission to monitor and ensure a free, fair and transparent election in the country.
C'est les élections, des élections transparentes, libres, qui déterminent tout.
And it should be noted that the Archbishop of the Metropolitan Archdiocese in Douala, His Lordship Samuel Kleda, said that after a diagnosis was actually conducted, it was realized that Bishop Dieudonné Bokmis of Ezeka, that is in the Nyong and Kelly division, who died a few weeks ago, died a natural death. The prelate is going to be laid to rest this week in Cameroon. We, of course, will be telling you more on that in our subsequent newscast. Now we take a look at the devastating consequences of the Anglophone crisis on economic activities here in the economic capital, Douala. As we said earlier in this newscast, business persons in some parts of the city, precisely in markets, who say that sales have dropped drastically as a result of the current crisis that is deepening. They have launched a call on the government to quickly resolve the crisis before the effects drops on them. Simanjika Gebre visited some markets in the city of Douala. He tells us more in the following report.
It is a normal atmosphere that reigns at the Sandanga market, where mostly perishable goods like tomatoes, green pepper and spices are being sold. Notwithstanding this peace that reigns, the Anglophone crisis is having a great impact on their sales.
The way we were selling before and now is low. Things are very bad in the market because buyers are no more coming. At first we were selling, people were coming from north and southwest to come and buy. That we are going enough to our activities and everything was going well. Since the crisis, things has been very, very, very tough on our side. Not only because people are here much, but there is no money. Everything is very bad. So we can't really cope with the situation. We are not coping here in Douala. More people were coming southwest and northwest to come and buy. There are no more coming even. I have a customer who was coming from Limbe, 15,000 just for a week. But now I cannot afford for that 15,000 again because she's no more coming again.
This businesswoman further calls for the reinforcement of security and more still the end to the crisis.
Security purpose, they think that's another one too. Now thieves are outside too much. You cannot even know who is a thief and who is not a thief because everybody is everywhere. But the thing is that, please, we should look for a way and try to stop this thing because things are really bad on our side. We the people doing business.
The story is not different at the Mbopi market that deals in mostly wholesales. At one of the sales points where artificial hair are being sold, the sales has drastically dropped since the crisis started 2 years now.
Hard time we are experiencing, something like bad market now. Market is not turning like before. Before I know that many of my customers, they used to come from many places now. But since that problem of this Anglophone, so that thing is disturbing.
Because of the ongoing socio-political impasse, even to travel to Nigeria to buy goods has become a veritable nightmare to most of those who rely on supplies from there.
Nigeria now is not an easy task now, and now is rainy season, and some people are afraid of entering inside sea. It is a big risk to enter sea now and go to Nigeria, and that road that we are passing is not easy. So people are afraid.
The ongoing crisis is not only affecting those in the two English-speaking regions, but also business persons based in Douala.
And not only the business sector or markets affected by the Anglophone crisis, the entire economy in the country is being threatened. Findings by the Cameroon Employers Union, that is known in its French acronym as GCAM project, has talked about the devastating consequences of the Anglophone crisis that started more than 2 years ago. It is contained in a finding that they made public recently. Details with Babla Jonathan.
The Anglophone crisis provokes loss in hundreds of billions of francs CFA incurred by public and private companies in Cameroon. Findings of the Cameroon Employers Union (GCAM) estimate the loss incurred this far as a result of the deepening crisis at more than 269 billion francs CFA. The cocoa sector is the hardest hit. Over 56 billion francs CFA gone into flames and gun batters. 4.9 billion francs CFA lost by the agro-industry, 1 billion francs CFA per month by the telecommunications sector. Properties destroyed are estimated at more than 2 billion francs CFA. Over 6,424 employees have lost their jobs in the agro-industry alone, and 8,000 jobs are threatened in the informal sector. The Anglophone crisis is fast bringing the country's economy to its knees.
And for more than €1, 8 months now, the several activities, that is the business, academic and transport sectors, are being greatly affected. Particularly on Mondays being observed as Ghost Town Day in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. This Monday was not an exception in the town of Limbe, Boya, Bamenda, Kumba, and major cities and villages in the two Anglophone regions of the country were today hit by Ghost Town. Several activities were equally paralyzed as a result of the situation that has been going on for close to 2 years now since the Anglophone crisis escalated. On to something else before we take you to the second part of this newscast. A large consignment of expired products has been seized and incinerated by administrative authorities in Tui, Mbam and Kim division of the Central region of Cameroon. The good worth millions of francs CFA were confiscated from businessmen. Details with Innocent Aze.
This large consignment of expired products was seized from businessmen and incinerated by authorities in Tui in the Mbam and Kim division of the Central region. An operation which to the authorities aims at protecting consumers' health and ensuring the market is free from dangerous goods. These products consist of drinks, oil, pharmaceutical, cosmetic and many other products. Some of the items have long expired but were still circulating in the market, posing a severe health threat.
Nous mettons hors d'usage les produits périmés.
According to the divisional delegates of commerce, the operation will continue until its objectives are attained.
Effectivement, cette logique.
The destroyed products have been estimated to worth millions of francs CFA. These contraband goods burnt in the watchful eyes of the senior divisional officer of the Mbam and Kim division, Donatien and other dignitaries, such that they are not recollected for recycling and sent back into the market.
And that brings us to the end of this first segment of the news. Time for us to meet our guest tonight. We shall be right back. Stay with us. Don't go away. We've been joined tonight by an actor of the civil society, Mr. Divison D. Ate. Good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Talking Point.
Good evening to you, Mimi. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are going to be talking about opposition coalition, the outing of the president of the National Episcopal Conference, and of course, the U.S. Election monitoring structure that has so far foretold that the head of state is actually victorious, is going to be victorious in the upcoming presidential election in Cameroon. We begin with the outing of the CRM presidential candidate, Professor Maurice Kamto, that has finally unveiled the coalition that is going to be rallying, or those that are going to be rallying behind him without a single contender on the list. What is your reaction as far as that is concerned?
Well, my reaction is that would have been very good news. It's nice because the too many parties in Cameroon is a joke, and if they could come together, it is worth it. But then when we say come together, we mean parties that are worth it, that have members behind it. All the small parties, everybody who has gone and made himself a party now coming together doesn't really cancel, doesn't really give it weight. And it is sad, but I think the country as a whole, or people who want to participate in elections, would have been very glad if the big parties, the powerhouse, the people who have made names for themselves, Cabral Divi, Akeremuna, and so on, had joined together and chosen a single candidate who could challenge the juggernaut, incumbent Paul Biya.
But we see some important political figures in Cameroon, like Paul Erikinge of the MPCN party, and also Abel Zonga.
Yeah, they have
the political names to create an impact.
They are names in themselves. There's no doubt about that. But their parties, as such, really does not have a following. I don't know how much we can count by way of their members who would actually go and vote and make a difference. It's still very nice to know that at least they have given up the idea of challenging to make 22 parties contesting for the presidency and would want to join with somebody else. But how many followers have they got? Not really anything to talk about.
Now, you've talked about the importance of a coalition, how it can help, possibly guarantee change that many Cameroonians are demanding for. The question now is, what, according to you, could be impeding the putting in place of this coalition, opposition party leaders coming together as one?
Selfishness, egoism. They want all to become leaders. They want to make names for themselves. Some of them, I think, really are sincere and are not really in one with the current government. But others are really just substitutes for the ruling party. If I take the party of Gaga Arman, I think he's just it's a help to CPDM than that he's an independent party. When there is no elections, we don't hear him. We don't hear him moving. We don't hear him saying anything. And in times of crisis, as we had recently, Paul Biya asked him to go and intervene in the Anglophone crisis. Means that he's an agent of the...
But there seems to be the problem of disagreement on ideologies. They have different ideologies and political programs, and a candidate would not agree or accept that his ideology or program be submerged by another candidate.
I think at this time, we do not have ideologies. I do not think they believe in any ideology. They just want power. And this I know, for example, when I take the party of Issa Bakari Chorima, who was a great opposition
but he's not taking part in the election.
He's not taking part in the election, but when he turned court, we couldn't see any of the noise he was making as an opposition member. In fact, he's so strongly for Paul Biya now that it's an embarrassment. Not only his party members, but to all those who thought they could believe in an opposition.
Are you saying you're not trusting the opposition?
Taking over the country in terms of representation, in terms of people who act for them, whether it's CRTV, whether it's the governors, whether it's the director generals, whether it's the chiefs of all the various villages, not only of the south, the north, sometimes even the northwest, against their own people. They are all for CPN. They can't even say why they are there. And their candidate is not even campaigning. He's hiding somewhere.
When we listen to you, we see a lot, somewhat pessimism in the 7th of October presidential election in Cameroon.
Yeah.
What is your perception?
Yeah.
Just recently, the U.S. election monitoring structure that is called Innovative Solutions has actually foretold victory on the part of the CPDM presidential candidate, President Paul Biya. What does it tell you about the upcoming presidential election with regards to what you're saying?
You're very right. It's a lot of pessimism. And I can tell you, just like those people, that we know the results before the time. This is no independent monitoring or an objective kind of guy who has got. You can't tell me today that 80% of the electorate would vote Paul Biya. No way. I mean, even if he scrapes, he is far less popular than he was even when the 1992 elections took place. And then to tell me that today he has 80%, no. I think this is a company that has been given their money. They have been asked to work for the CPDM. And I think there are rumors. I don't want to say it because I don't have any proofs whatsoever. But that this is a relation of Atanganji who is been given some money and is making this...
Purportedly, because the minister is yet to react to that.
No, we wouldn't expect him to react to that.
There are no concrete proofs that is related to him.
Atanganji will never react to that, and he will never claim that he's doing that. But, I mean, there are people in the know who completely believe so. And I think by the way things have been going, the type of person he is, the way he has been doing things, me personally, I don't have any doubts that he has a hand in it.
Now, we listened to the president of the CRM before we get to talk about the outing of the National Episcopal Conference in Douala today. He said that he would have loved to go closer to the people of the northwest and the southwest regions of Cameroon to unveil his economic, political, and social programs to them, tell them his promises that he is going to be fulfilling when he's finally elected president in Cameroon. But government officials have made us to understand that elections will be taking place in all the 360 councils across the national territory. And an opposition party is making us to understand that he cannot go to those regions.
He's being realistic.
Because of the security situation.
He's being
How
realistic.
do you foresee the election period,
the
campaign
realistic.
and election in the two Anglophone regions of Cameroon?
He's being realistic, and he cannot risk his life. He cannot risk the life of his supporters to try to go into those regions. There is no security there. And as the people who are fleeing, I hope you saw what happened over the weekend, where the governors of both regions are begging the people to stay. And he's not asking the people, really, why are you going away? Because if you ask them, as indeed I have, they tell you they're running away from the army. We've been telling them all along, don't put armies in these places. The southwest elites, when they had their conference, or what they call it in the southwest, they asked for the government to send in more troops. These guys are killers. That's the way the population
sees them. No, they are there. The government says that they are there to protect the population from harm.
They are not protecting the population. They are not. Let them open their eyes. Let them see. They are killing innocent people. Yes, there are radicals. There are people who are shooting guns all over the place, but they are not targeting them. They have no strategy for getting them. When they shoot here, the army hears about it, they come in there and they shoot anybody.
So the lives of civilians, their lives are not secure. Now, the National Episcopal Conference, before we go, has actually announced the creation of a Peace and Justice Commission to monitor the upcoming presidential election in Cameroon and ensure that it is free, fair and transparent. What is your reaction to that? Is that a positive move? As a Roman Catholic, I think that's a very positive move. I believe in them. I'm sure of their sincerity, and that's what they will do. But the powers that be will not let it happen. The politicians that be will not let it happen. What do you mean that they will not let it happen? Will Ekema allow the Peace and Reconciliation Committee to operate? Would Okala Bilai accept them to operate? Would Atanganji give them the necessary mandate and protection for them to operate? Why would they operate? They cannot. The Samuel Cleda. It's going to be national territory, not in the Anglophone regions. Yes, national territory, but okay. The trouble is in Northwest and Southwest, and they'll come and hold their meetings in Douala and in Yaoundé. Oh, that's a joke. Thank you so much, Mr. Davison Deate, for joining us tonight on Talking Point. We hope to have you some other time again. Thank you so much for your time to our viewers. Yes. It was equally a pleasure having you with us in this edition of the Prime Time 6 p.m. newscast on ETV. Wishing you a blessed stay in the company of our programs. Until we meet again, goodbye.